What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fab, Freddie Fox, America's Big Brother, and we back with the Saturday Night Sit Down. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fab, Freddie Fox, America's Big Brother, and we back with Saturday Night Sit Down. And tonight we got the host of Dad Is Not a Noun, Ishmael Street. What's going on, my man?
I'm good, brother. I'm heading out, man. I'm loving it, man. Seriously, this kind of has that boom bap vibe to it from the '90s, man. I'm feeling it, brother.
Yeah, my a good friend of mine's man. I've known him since like the fourth or fifth grade. Renee Figueroa. I told him I wanted something that's gonna really be catchy and get the people moving. And he just first try, man, he hit it right out of the park with that one. So I'm super happy with my intro on that one, man.
I'm loving it, man. It's fire, man.
I appreciate it, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here on my show, man. I know you got your own podcast and stuff, and we'll dabble into that. But the reason I do my podcast when I'm doing this and stuff is just as I explained, a lot of dads, especially in our culture, get a bad rap, and we just really need to know the importance of what it is to be a good father, a good man to our children, because they really, really need us, and they're so important. And moms are wonderful and they do an amazing job on their part too, but it takes two, you know what I mean? So it's very, very important for dads to really be there and present with their kids' lives, because that definitely leaves a lasting impact, as we've seen on so many young kids that are growing up in the generation, you know what I mean?
Definitely, I definitely agree with that. I think that's important. Is like, you know, like one person that always told me, I call him Uncle Derek, but he's the founder and executive director of the Real Dads Network, which is like the large one, is the oldest Black father nonprofit organizations in the country. He said that basically like basketball, like free throws, like if you have both parents in the home, you have a 80, like a 90% chance of making that free throw.
Mm,
You know, having one parent, the number decrease. So it's
right, right.
important to have both parents if they're not together, but at least still having both parents in the child's life.
No, absolutely, man. So, again, thank you for taking the time, and let's get into it. So, I got to ask everybody my very first question to you. If you think about it, what do you think are some of the main characteristics or qualities that make up a good man or a good person?
I think one is to listen, to be humbled, to not have that all the answers, be willing to say I don't know, because often as men we put this face mat this fake mask on that we know everything,
Right,
and
right.
then when reality hits and we don't know the answer, now we're like cell shock what we're going to do in that circumstance. So again, it goes back to be humbling. If you don't have the answers, just be honest and open that you don't have the answers. So I think those are the qualities that make up a good man.
Yeah, no, I think it's key just to say that too, to admit your mistakes and not wrong, because a lot of times I think kids, um, we look up to our parents, right? We put them on this pedestal, and everything is their law to a certain extent. A lot of parents kind of use that an advantage too. You know what I mean? Whatever I say, it goes. But sometimes, again, parents are just learning how to raise kids. There's no book, there's no pamphlet, and again, every child is different. So, it takes a lot to try to learn. But I think it's also important is being honest and real with them and let them know what you don't know, because then, you put all this trust in your parent, right? And
Yeah.
then they unintentionally tell you a lie or something that may not be true, and quickly start questioning, start looking elsewhere for answers, and that could be very, very dangerous. You start believing the wrong people. So I think that's very, very key as a parent too, because I make it a point with my daughter, because I know what it's like, to have that, right, and make mistakes and know how important it is. So if I do something wrong or I make a mistake or make an error, I let them know, hey, you know what, Daddy was just trying to do this and I didn't make the right choice. It was just, I'm sorry, I made my mistake, and apologizing too. I think it's key to that. Them know that you could apologize, because then it really helped to grow that relationship with them. So I think it's a very good point that you hit on there. And along with having great qualities, right? I think it's important to have exceptional morals or things that you stand behind. So for you, what are some of your key morals that you live by on a day to day basis?
I think the one thing is to be honest, to be transparent. I'm gonna be open and honest with you on this platform. I know growing up, I used to lie a lot growing up. I used to lie about the little things, like the smallest things growing up. Like my mom used to like I would break something and I would say, "Oh no, it wasn't me, it was my brother." you know. And so it's about being honest, being transparent, and just being honest with people. Like for example, like if someone asks me, "Can you do something ish?" I'm gonna be honest. If I'm not in the right mindset, or if I can't do it, I'm gonna be open and honest. Say, you know what, I can't do it.
Right.
I can't do it because often as black men, we we take on this bravado like we can do it, knowing that we can't do it,
Hmm.
and we make the situation 10 times worse. So learning to say no, I've learned that in my vocabulary. It was hard for me for a long
Hmm.
time just to say no, especially like family and friends that I really care about, to just tell them no, I just can't do it. It's like I can't do it. Knowing like past relationship with people that I can't do it. And this is the reason why I can't do it. Or I'm not, I can't, I just don't have the energy to do it. So also just saying no, I think is the big thing for me.
No, I totally agree with you. It's so important to know your own boundaries and your limitations because then at the end of the day, then two people are suffering. The person who you made a commitment to and you're not coming through, and also yourself because you start beating yourself up about it. And that's just the worst when you really start to tear yourself down. I've always heard this quote, right? And it says, never speak bad about yourself because the warrior inside hears this and is weakened by them. So you constantly are just defeating yourself. And the worst part about it is that no one is you're your own worst enemy, right? Because you know all your flaws, you know all your weak points, and you know how to manipulate them to really make you feel pain and hurt. And that is so damaging. So understanding when to say no, understanding your limitations is very key because it's good for your sanity and also for the other person. They know that they can find help where they need to, or move on, and everything is good.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And I agree with that. And I think as black men, it's just being open with our vulnerability. That's one thing that we've never learned as men
mhm,
growing up. I've never learned that from my stepdad. I've never learned that from my uncles. These are things that I'm learning now in my 40s, that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, you know what, this is what I'm frustrated about, and I'm gonna
yeah.
let you know. Just listen. Or, I'm having a bad day, or, or just something. Just when you're emotionally out of it, just talk about it. So these are things that I'm learning on the fly, but at the same time, it's good because now I'm just open of how I'm feeling. Because, growing up, I would just hide how I felt,
Hmm.
and then it got to a point where a couple of years ago, I almost took my life. I almost
Hmm.
committed suicide because I was in a dark place with myself, because I just, I had no hope. And again, you are your worst enemy, like you were saying before, alluded, is that I was my worst enemy because I always told myself I wasn't good enough. Even though people would tell me, you're this amazing person, you're always
Yeah.
helping people, you're doing this. It's like it goes through one ear and out the other, and I wasn't thinking that way. And so it was just a struggle of me just trying to figuring it out. And a couple of years later, I'm still figuring it out, but I'm in a better place than I was before. But at the same time, it's just it's a long journey. It's a long process.
No, absolutely, and it starts with that just being able to talk about it, friends, because that's where we all suffer, right? Because especially growing up, in our timeline, you can't show emotion as a man.
Yeah.
You got to be strong. You know what I'm saying? You feeling sad, man up. You ain't no reason to be crying and all that stuff. We were never ever allowed to feel anything or discuss our feelings with anyone at any time. And all of that builds up inside you. All the pain, all the
Mhm.
hurt, the sorrow, the sadness, the depression, the anxiety, all those things it's just like they keep saying, it's like a shoulder bottle. Just keep shaking it up until finally it explodes, because there is no, release to do that. And that's again one of the main reasons why I'm doing this. And also I have another show called, Face Fears and Build Bonds with Fabs, where it's really predicated to that, to being able to get guys together to openly talk about their feelings and emotions because since we're always forced to keep those things inside, like Jason Wilson said, in his book, it's an emotional incarceration. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's just so toxic, and we start to um, lash out in the most negative and most destructive ways. Because we have no positive outlet. So, by getting these guys together to talk about these things and really open up about our feelings and discuss, we realize two things. Number one is that we're not alone, and two, it's such a therapy and a relief to let that all off your chest. And it's not just about seeking for people to give you the answer to your problems, but just being able to vent and decompress and really get it out there because you're not holding it back anymore. and it takes so much energy, and that's where it comes from. It takes so much energy to keep those things locked up and pushed down that eventually you crack. And I've been there too, Mish. Ish, I really I've attempted suicide on more than one occasion because of feeling all that thing and just trying to feel so sad and empty and lonely. And plenty of people always tell me the same thing too. You're a wonderful person, you're so kind-hearted. And I think because of that is that we feel so bad or negative about ourselves that we do our best to try to help everybody else other than ourselves to seek that validation. But at the end of the day, it's empty validation because we don't even believe it ourselves.
So true.
So the world of masses, you can have a million people sitting there telling you how much of a wonderful person you are. But if you don't believe it yourself, it means nothing.
Yeah.
So it's so key to do those things and really be open up and I see it a little bit more now, like as I've started this journey. And I don't think it's just a matter of what I'm putting out in the universe, but gravitating to people like yourself who are have that same mindset and that mentality, and seeing, hey, what, this is a real thing that's out there, and so many people are trying to make this public and known. So again, wonderful what you're doing with your podcast and things like that, and how you're trying to again bring this to the narrative and bring this out to the world. Um, Now, as also too, key thing about my show is again the importance of dads and our role models. Now, I know you said you had your stepdad and everything, and I want to get to that in a second. But with
Sure.
your biological father, what was your relationship with him? Did you know him at all, or how was that?
I had no relationship at all with my biological father. The scariest thing is I wrote a poem saying, it was, what was the line, if I could remember? It's called Happy Birthday. It was every was it every every time on my birthday when I look in the mirror, uh I I I, I I'm just going blank right now, but every time it basically paraphrases like every time on my birthday I look myself in the mirror, I see him
Hmm.
because he's like we look like twins. That's the scary thing about
Mm,
my biological father, is that we look the same, but don't don't have any kind of recollection of him or anything. So I never had a relationship with him. But a lot of people say I look like him, and I've seen photos of him. But I do remember like getting cards for him saying he was going to come to see me on my birthday,
mm,
and never showed up. So I never had any relationship. The only relationship I actually had, I wouldn't say relationship, but the only conversation I had with him, I think was like 15 or 16 years ago on New Year's Eve. And my uncle calls me on New Year's Eve to wish me like a happy New Year's. And for some reason, I asked him, can I talk to my father? And my uncle paused and said, okay. And then like a minute later, I'm on the phone with my father, and we
mm.
having the conversation was like less than, I would say, a minute. Like, hey, how you doing? How you been? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Just to let you know, I love you. And he said he loved me. And then 4 or 5 months later, he passed away.
Oh wow.
And me and my brother took a trip all the way down to, I do believe it was South Carolina, for the funeral. And going to the funeral, going to the wake, going to the casket. That was like one of the scariest things in my life, because I'm looking at myself in the casket.
Mm,
Because like I was alluded to earlier, is that he looks like me. Like if you see like photos of us, you can see that he's my father. But yeah, and we didn't have a relationship at all.
and as you said, just growing up and trying to have a relationship with him, or what was that like? Did you either try to reach out at your young age, or was it not
I was at
even?
a young age, because he like was sending letters saying that he was going to come see us, and it
Mhm.
never happened. So I don't know what was the conversation with him and my mother. I don't know how that went, but I learned like later on from my brother is that he was abusive to my mother.
Mm,
He was
okay.
very he was because he was onto drugs and things like that. So he was very physical with my mother. So that's what my brother told me, because
Mhm,
he's older than me. So he saw some of that stuff. He saw that growing up.
mhm.
So I'm just taking from his account what he told me. And so it was just, yeah, no relationship at all, Adam. No connection at all.
Oh, wow. And how do you think do you think that affected you in any kind of way as you were growing up, or did your stepfather, fill that void
It
for
it in a way it did because like you get these cards from a man that said he promised something
you?
it never come through, and it was disheartening for me as a child that you get these promises that's broken,
Right, right.
and so it hurts you as a child, and then you just move on. And then when my stepdad came in the place, he kind of was my my first superhero. He was the first person that was there. Even though later on I found out his relationship with my mom was kind of awkward in a way, but he was there. We had things in common. We watched sports. Um, we used to go on family trips. So he was that first male person I looked up to growing up.
And when did he come into your life?
He came in my life when I was like, I would say 9 years old. Because back in the days, my mom was heavy into like the motorcycle club, and then she
Hmm.
would go to the club, and that's how they met. And then like he started coming over, um, starting to building a relationship with me and my brother, and it just took off from there. And he was in our life ever since. Like, but it was weird growing up too because like he would be here for the weekend
Hmm.
and then be gone.
Hmm.
And it was kind of weird to me. It's like, they've been together for this long. It's like, why is he not here, like permanently? And like, it was just confusing to me as a child. It's like, okay, you know, I want him here more often. Like, what's going on? And to find out, later on that he was married,
Mm.
and my mom was like, I don't like using the terminology. She was to check on the side.
Gotcha, gotcha. Right.
And like later on in my life, that kind of messed me up a little bit. It's like this man that taught me everything, how to be a man, you know. And again, relationships are complex and everything like that. Like learning that, it's like it's confusing. It's like, okay, you're telling me to do this, and you're doing something the total opposite.
Right, right. It's one of those do as I say, not as I do type
Yeah,
situations.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Now, when he came into your life, do you feel that um you gravitated towards him quicker because you wanted that male role model, or were you a little bit hesitant because of your relationship with your dad that made you kind of, I guess, not trusting to that extent?
No, I gravitated to him from the beginning because we had so much in common. Like he was into sports. He was a big. I found out he was a fan of the Knicks because I'm a
Mm,
fan of the Knicks. So that was the relationship started from there. And then also finding out he loves baseball because I love watching baseball when I was growing up. I love the Yankees. He loved the Mets. But we had something in common, and it just
okay.
that relationship blossomed because we had something in common.
No, okay, yeah, no, I definitely understand because I know I see. I guess it depends on the circumstance and the reason I was asking because I had a couple of guys on my show, who were stepfathers in their own ways as well, and just seeing how that relationship with the kid is because again, we see it from two aspects, right? Number one, they're very hesitant or reluctant because maybe their dad was in the picture, they want their mom and dad to get back together, so they're very combative, I guess, in a sense, and not
Right.
welcoming to that other individual. That makes it a little bit harder and strange on the relationship. Or in other cases too, where they long for that father figure and having somebody that come into their life to really pick up that role and actually does that role well and suits them, to make the relationship or the to connect a little bit quicker.
Right.
And now with the whole relationship with your mom and stuff, I guess how long. Because I think you said he just passed away last year, right? Again, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Has he been in your life ever since like that since you were 9, or has it been on and off, or how did that?
He wasn't like we were tight until I would say I think like in my late 30s, and we had a falling out. And so it got to a point where I didn't want nothing to do with him, you know, because again, I have this baggage of like, you know, he's my, stepdad, but at the same time, it's like, you know, he's like, he's telling me what to do, and I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, you know, you're, you were in a relationship with my mother, and you were still in a relationship with another woman, and I'm like you need to just, and it just got really heated to a
Mm-hmm.
point where I didn't want nothing to do with him at all,
Yeah.
and just lost communication with him. Didn't bother wanting to talk to him or anything like that. Because I was just in that emotional black period of my life where I'm just broken to
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
point where I was talking to, like I was saying earlier, that to that point where I was almost to the point of taking my life. Like I was in that period in time, and so I'm like, I didn't want nothing to do with him, and so um, he would try to reach out to me. I wouldn't reach out to him. He would text me. I wouldn't text him back. It was just really bad, and um, I didn't, and we didn't have a relationship at all within that time period. And when he passed, so I didn't have a relationship with him when he passed. It's like
Mm.
I found out he passed away on Facebook. That's how I found
Oh
out
wow.
he passed away.
Yeah. So I guess you didn't make it to the funeral, or any of that stuff. It was just knowing that he passed, and that was it.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Now, when you said that too, is in that moment where you're in a very dark stage and thought about taking your life and all that. What was going on through your head? What was going on in your life at that time that made you feel that way?
No, it's just at that time I had no purpose, I had no vision. I just it was just really bad. It was just
Hmm.
a combination of like all the stuff that was building up inside of me as a child, and it just exploded. And you know how certain things in your life, it builds
Hmm.
up and builds up, and it get to a point where it exploded.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where it was at. It was like you're like, I'm done with this. I don't want to live my life anymore. I'm done. If I take my life today, people won't even care about it. And so that's where I was at. And so the different circumstances, especially dealing with my stepdad and then my current situation where I was at that time, it just had me to that point where I just didn't care. I didn't care. I didn't care. And then luckily, like, because I had my mind made up, like I'm gonna jump off a bridge. And so I was
Hmm.
gonna go to the nearest bridge and jump off. And I'm walking, and a friend of mine sees me. They say, Ish, what are you doing? And he had me go into the car. Because if he didn't see, if
That's all
my
it
friend
takes.
didn't acknowledge me at that time, I would have done it.
And it's true, man. It's so wild how it's just the simplest thing, that could really deter us, from that, and just and I think, well, number one, I guess, because I've been there too. As far as a man without a sense of purpose is nerve wracking and will drive him to insanity. I've been there where just growing up and just not knowing what I was going to do with my life or what was going on. And, no matter what you try to do or try to make a change for improvement, it was like getting slapped in the face and then knocked back down and stuff. So you just get tired of the rejection and tired of not being able to find it, or just always feeling like you're behind.
Yeah.
That leads to that madness. One of the, um, well, a couple times, right? But what really drove me in these last couple of years, actually, back in 2016, I was laid off from this job where I thought I was going to have my career. I was giving it my all and all stuff like that. We got bought out and they shut down and laid everybody off. And what really weighed in on me was because my daughter was just turning one, and created this family, and now I have no way to support them.
Right.
And it started to really eat at me. And, as I'm trying to find different jobs to go different places, it just wasn't really working out. And yeah, I started again in those minds, like if I get an insurance, I'm more dead than I am alive. At least I'll be able to provide for them that way while leaving them a large lump sum of money that they can get back on their feet or something like that I may not be able to do here. Um, and it was one of those times I went over and I went. There's a bridge right around my house. I went there too, and I was sitting on the edge of the bridge, and I was getting ready to jump off into the interstate. But as I'm looking down, there was just so much traffic. So it's like if I do this, it's not like I'm just gonna get hurt really bad. It's not gonna be
Right.
the end of it like I want. So there's really no point and didn't want to have to, like, if you do it, like, I want to be done with it because I don't want to have to like fail at it and then answer all these questions and then even a failure at that, I can't even succeed in doing this. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
So it was very, very traumatizing, and a lot of that because again, like I felt like I had no purpose or no thing of being, and for me, my saving grace is really is this podcast, man. I love talking to people. I love engaging. I think it's definitely where I'm supposed to be at and doing, and really gives me that sense of fulfillment. Um, that again, I'm leaving an impact and meaningful. But my biggest fear, like I told everybody, right? My biggest fear is going through this life and not leaving an impact.
Yeah.
I don't want to be just a blip on the radar, you know what I mean? Like, or something that just happened or occurred.
Right.
I want it to have meaning. So this is how I feel like I'm gonna leave that legacy in doing that. So it's very important again that a man has a sense of purpose and a sense of being and learning something and having something to strive for, because if not, then our means of existence is pointless.
I totally agree, and that's the reason why it kind of drove me to "That Is Not a Noun," was before pandemic, I did create "That Is Not a Noun," was to be just a social media platform to just highlight men of color, just showing men of color with their kids and things like that. Um, and then like COVID hits, and I'm like, let me create a podcast. And at that time, my ex, she's my ex now, she's like, won't you just create a podcast? So I created a podcast. I started on IG and just interviewing dads, sharing their stories, just open themselves up, being vulnerable. And then, after that, I'm like, well, I should just take this to YouTube. And like my first ever guest, like on YouTube, was Jane Elliott. She was my very first guest on the podcast,
Wow.
and we talked about race in current America in COVID, because at the time Trump was the president. And
Hmm.
so, and it just from there, I'm like, this is what I should do. Because in the past I've had history with podcasts.
Hmm.
Like I was normally behind the scenes. Like I was part of a podcast a long time ago called The Love Jones Experience with Scottish Jones. I was responsible of getting the guests and helping, prep up the show and everything like that behind the scenes. And then there was another radio show I was a part of called The Chronicles of a Hip Hop Legend radio show. And I was a hip hop bass. And again, I was behind the scenes. So I kind of knew, my way around
Hmm.
of like having a conversation, take knowing where you can go, where the conversation can go. So I kind of was already with that. It was just me being shy,
Right.
being in front of the camera, because I was more behind the camera. I'd rather like behind the scenes. And so I just said, well, just do it. And you know, the rest is history.
Now, just to kind of backtrack a little bit too, 'cause I know we were
Sure.
sitting there with your stepdad and stuff.
Sure.
Because, you said you guys taught you a lot of things. It was telling you how to be and something. What do you think was the most important thing I guess you learned from him, that helped you become who you are today?
I think what I learned from my father, James, is that is to just be your own man. Um, be the provider. Uh, just be there for people when you need them. Um, be humble. Um, and just be an all around good person.
Awesome, awesome, man. Um, so I know you kind of broke down saying that how you started the podcast was almost maybe a homage to him or seeing it about dads and stuff. Now, as I'm kind of understanding and getting to know you, do you feel that this was also kind of a way of looking for the perfect dad for yourself and seeing all things out there for the things that you lacked or you were looking for in your life?
I think it was more helping me with my mental health.
Hmm.
It was a coping mechanism where using this platform to just work on myself, but also use this platform to help other people too. Give them a place where they can talk and become vulnerable. So it had to be more, had to be more just a way to just work on my mental health. So this
Hmm.
podcast have honestly has also saved my life too.
I agree with you. I think it's just too that feeling very alone in those situations, and I wanted I wanted to be a dad. You know, that was one of my biggest goals in my life. I wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be a stay-at-home dad because I wanted to be there for my kids 24/7. Um, but what also on the, I guess, the downside of that is that the majority of my day, you know, I'm talking to toddlers or people that are younger than me. You know what I mean, and having that conversation and not really
Right.
being able to vent or speak with somebody, you know, of my own age and going through the same problems and trying to understand what was going on. So this also is truly, and just like you said, is a sense of therapy for myself, being able to vocalize. And a lot of times too, having conversations with you guys make me realize things about my own past and things that I want to change or develop, or making things click that happened to me before that I'm able to deal with now in a more mature and a healthier manner. Um, so it is very important, like you said, to my own mental health as well. So I think it's, you know, we connect on that same level, saying that, you know what I mean, we got a lot going on. This is a great way to kind of vent and really deal with a lot of past traumas
Yeah.
and issues that kind of plagued us. Um, so you know, again, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. I got two last questions as we wind
Yeah, no
down here
problem.
for us. So number one, right, and everything that you've been through in your whole life, what do you think has been the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've received is it's okay to say no, and it's okay to be selfish because selfish is self-care.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people misunderstand that. And I think it was one of that too, is that I I hated talking positive about myself, or taking time for me, because it was that it made me feel like I was being selfish or I was being arrogant and conceited. And I didn't really understand how to separate or really understand that until I got older and trying to say, you know what I mean? Because people will tell you that you're arrogant or you're, you know, conceited and all those things, but not because of what the fact is because, you know, they don't like what they see. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, or they don't agree with your mentality, so they got to bring you down in one shape or form. I mean, you got to be stronger than that, you know,
Yeah.
and understand, because the people who see you as being confident will gravitate towards you, and they'll let you know that. You know, you just got to be wary of the snakes in the grass, like they say, right?
So true.
Um, so, lastly, as we're coming at my last question, is look again, you know, with all your experience and everything that you've been through and everything, what is the one piece of advice you would give the younger generation of people coming up behind us?
I would say listen to the elders. Um, Number two, take the time and just learn as much as you can. That's the one thing is that in this today's society and social media and internet, information is there. Just
Right,
take the
right.
time, learn as much as you want, figure out like what you want to be, um, and then also, whatever information you get now, pass it on to the next generation too, because we live in this age where, everybody's about just chasing the bag,
Hmm.
you know, making the money. And don't get me wrong, making money is important, but also too, it's about what are you doing to help the next generation behind us. What legacy are you leaving behind them? And so those are the kind of what things I would like advice I would give to the next generation.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Great advice there, you know. And again, thank you for creating your wonderful podcast and doing what you're doing. I think it's so important to for us dads too to know that we're also appreciated, because again, sometimes, you know, it's the unsung heroes, you know.
Yeah.
Like they say, you know, dad does all these things, but they don't really ask what dad is going through or how dad feels sometimes. So it's just very important that we shine that light on that and really, you know, give us dads and us men of color too a chance to understand, like what I'm trying to do here, the importance of what it is to be a dad, the important and the impact that you leave on your kid's life, whether you know it or not. And again, it's not a matter of being the perfect dad. It's just a matter of being present and being
Yeah.
conscious, you know, and that goes a long, long way, more than people would ever understand. So again, thank you so much for your time. And again, everybody, thank you for
No problem.
listening. As I always say, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, your big brother loves you. Stay blessed, everybody.